and welcome to my ARP presentation. Today I'm going to be talking about how does immersion through video games have a short and long-term psychological effect in high school students. Now, what is immersion truly? Immersion is where you're lost within an activity or environment. This means when you feel as if time is going faster when presented with this activity. And the reason why this is very important is because this would cause people to be attached towards that activity if they experience this immersion. Now, the creation of immersion is very, very important. And there are 4 steps for you to succeed or at least have a sense of immersion. Number 1, being controls. Controls are very, very important. They need to be smooth and fluid. You need to feel like you are in that character's shoes. If they're clunky or a mess, then it would cause characters to be disconnected. Now, number 2, being environment. The environment is very, very important because that's the area you're going to be around the entire time. The environment needs to be graphically pleasing with a lot of activity within it. Loading times are a thing that breaks immersion. Loading times are the things that make you pause your game to load a new scenery. If you're able to try to limit the amount of loading times you have within your game, you're going to be granted with greater success of succeeding that immersion. Story is also super important to what every game designer is trying to succeed. Something that the player can get into and would give players motivation to keep doing what they're doing. Now I'm going to quickly talk about immersion and its impact with social groups. This being either a school environment, friend groups, or online activity. Now, a school environment could be very, very different, causing which in itself could cause friend groups. People being able to talk about what kind of games they like, and people starting to come together because of their likes. It's like music. If people like the same things, they're more likely to be able to get along. Now, online activity is a little bit different because you would normally meet people through the games you play. Obviously, this would relate towards online MMORPG type games. However, friendships and meeting new people is always very important, and video games can provide that, especially if you are immersed with that game. Now, another very important aspect is immersion's impact online. There's a specific genre called MMORPG, which basically means massive multiplayer online role-playing game. Now, this is a genre where it brings a bunch of players into one environment where they would either interact with each other, do different types of missions together, and like I said on top, could create online friends. Now, there's another very important aspect to an MMORPG. There's a character creation. Now, why is this character creation so important? It's because it can cause you to create your own identity within a game, causing you to be or feel like you are that person in that game. So when people interact with you, the first impression that they will get is through your online character and through that identity you give that character. Now, however, there are positives and negatives to this. The positives being that you get to be whatever you want within this online aspect. However, negatives being that people could abuse this, and specifically towards an online point of view, people become meaner. People become more negative. People like to, or some people like to hurt others, and that's a lot where cyberbullying comes into play. Now, immersion's impact mentally. Obviously, we all know that video games appeal more towards the youth, and the youth are a very impressionable audience. So this is why this accusation would come. However, it's false. The accusation being that video games make people more violent. There is no research, actual scientific research, to show that this accusation is true. However, there are actual positive aspects to it mentally. Video games can be looked at as a stress reliever. It could be looked at as their way to get out and a way for them to just calm down and relax. Now, I've been saying all this, but why is immersion in itself important? The reason being, obviously, like I said, because it locks players in and would increase playtime for game developers. So when a game has more immersion, people seem to like it more. And immersion in itself could be looked at as subjective, or it could be looked at as a goal to achieve with players. Immersion in itself is very, very hard to achieve without having that experience. However, the importance of it is that it causes players to feel like they're within something. Now we're going to be talking about some of the meat of the project. Immersion relating towards education. There have been experiments done in classes where teachers present students with an educational video game, trying to see if they're able to learn better and able to store that context easier. And there have been positive results. Through all of the research that I have gone through, I have only seen positive results. The reason being is because immersion in itself, once you're locked in towards a video game or any type of activity, it causes you to be more invested with the material in itself. Now, my product was about specifically this, immersion relating towards education. Now, my first plan was to make a video game for the English department about the Great Gatsby. However, I was unable to do that because of this coronavirus. However, I did manage to give a demo of what a storyboard would look like when going through the game development process. And this is my storyboard, a very, very raw demo of what my storyboard would have looked like. This is an app I used called Boards, and it basically is able to give me each frame, what each frame will look like on the screen, and then would give me the context on the right side of what each process I would need to go through. As you can see, what I was trying to do, like I said, was a Great Gatsby game, and the genre would have been a choose-your-own-adventure type game through obviously a visual novel setting. Now I'm going to go through this a little bit. As you can see, everything is color-coded, so the red would be obviously the starting point, and the ending point of each scene. Now, the orange labeling would be the sounds each scene would have within them. And the blue color coding would be everything, every action or subtext given. Now, I was planning on doing a full game at first, and then because I started to get time crunched, I started to work on a demo of the game, and now because one of my artists is stuck in a area, I am unable to fully be able to develop the game. So I wanted to give you something that is in a sense better, because this is the process a game designer would have to go through. Now, before I leave off on a conclusion, I want to quickly also talk about the frames given. Now, these frames obviously look very, very basic. However, this is what every game designer kind of does. They give themselves notes of what they need to either write or create. You can obviously see that there is a stretched out rectangle through every frame. This is basically supposed to be my HUD. The HUD being the heads up display. So, and within the HUD there was supposed to be text within there. Now, obviously, like I said, this is a very, very basic, a basic look at what a storyboard would be. However, every game designer has to go through this process to fully get that game design experience. Now, in conclusion, immersion has both a short-term and long-term effect. The short-term being the physical effect, being that the ability to be so invested in something that time goes a lot quicker. Now, immersion's impact on a long-term level would be about the ability to store context with also being super invested within what you're doing.